Hi, my name's Carol Ricard, and welcome to this episode of I Am Not Cancer. I am super excited for you to be here with us tonight because I have a special guest, and I am going to introduce her right this minute, and that is Joanne Smith Tavenor. Welcome. Woo!
Thank you, Carol. It's so great to be here with you this evening. It really is.
Now tell everybody where it is you're coming to us from.
Okay, I'm currently calling in from my home in Cape May, New Jersey. And I have to say it is lovely here. It's dark right now, but it's always wonderful in Cape May because there's always something exciting and beautiful going on.
Yeah. Yep. And I imagine it gets pretty darn busy down there during the summertime. So this is probably joy and peace and everything to go along with it.
It is busy year round, believe it or not, Carol, because not only the summertime where we have tourists and we have many people want to come in and enjoy, the beach, the sun, and all the activities that Cape May has to offer, but it's also, this is such a bustling town even like during Thanksgiving and Christmas time, because we still have like live parades. We had a huge live parade in West Cape May about 3 weeks ago. And it was just wonderful to see the lawn chairs lined up on the streets. It was just so fun and interesting to see, and all the floats going down the street. Cape May truly is magical. If you've never been to Cape May, it's definitely worth visiting.
I was just envisioning it with all the lights and just really festive kind of thing. Well, listen, I am so glad that you were able to take time to join me. Truth be told, I know Joanne going back, a good number of years. And, and I really thought it was going to be so important to have you on the show just to share your journey, your cancer journey with others, because the mission is to inspire, inform, and empower people. And I know that's part of your DNA. That's part of who you are as well. So how about this? If you could just tell us a little bit about your life before cancer visited.
Okay. Well, quite frankly, I've always been very, very active. Physical fitness has always been part of my life. So much so that I pursued a degree in health and exercise science, and furthered it with a master's degree in health education. I went to, again, the college in New Jersey, and I worked as the wellness coordinator for the New Jersey State Police. And Carol, that's where you and our paths crossed. And it was so exciting to have you come and speak with us with the state police about various ways to manage stress. And ironically, again, I was living a very healthful life. I never smoked a day in my life. I worked out pretty much every day. And then something just didn't feel right. And I was always a big advocate for health and wellness, and always for my own health, always getting my checkups constantly. And something just didn't feel right. And I went to my OBGYN and I complained about pain in my breast, in my right breast. And thank goodness he was very vigilant and sent me early in my years of seeing him. I was like late 30s for my baseline mammogram. And every year after that, he would follow up. So I have to say thank you to my OBGYN, which was Dr. Eater. Give him a shout out. And then on my, it was prior to my 45th birthday, it was 44. And something just didn't feel right and didn't sit right with me. And he told me to go get it checked. And again, it appeared that I had microcalcifications. And it kind of rocked my world. And I was like, okay, all right. But this is something I could deal with. And so I dealt with it by going through the procedure to remove them. And of course, then they send out that procedure. And then I had to go for a biopsy to make sure they cleared the margins, so to speak. And then I found out that I had cancer, and not just one cancer in my right breast, but 3 different types of cancers. Wow. So it scared me. Needless to say, fear was the first response, as well as, how could this be happening to me?
I can't imagine. So listen, I can imagine what it's been like to told, when you have one cancer, but
Mhm.
to hear that you have three cancers, I think would just triple the fear
Mhm.
that would come along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Kara, I thought, okay, I thought it was just one cancer, and the biopsy revealed no, there's two other types. The most common type of breast cancer is DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ, and I also had a mucinous and an intertubular type of cancer, and it was like, okay, all right, this is weird, and it rocked my world because here I am, the health advocate, the wellness coordinator for the New Jersey State Police. And I actually said to my oncologist, like, how does this gonna look? I'm the wellness coordinator and I'm diagnosed with cancer. Like this was like my biggest like fear, like perception and view of what people would think. And it was crazy for me to think that way, but it was just natural human instinct. And he turned his head and he says to me, Joanne, no one no one is protected from, not getting cancer. Just because you lead a healthy lifestyle does not preclude you from getting a horrible disease, because you'll do what you do best: help people, help educate people, and help people, by telling your story if it can help someone else.
Yeah. You you know what, Joanne? It's very interesting listening to you because the same thing happened to my sister,
Mm,
who was very, very healthy. Kind of very health conscious. Always ate like
mm,
really, really well, and quite honestly, I would say was of the two of us,
mhm,
definitely healthier. And for her too,
mhm,
it she stopped telling people
mhm,
because
mhm.
they looked at her and they said, well, if you're this healthy and you could get cancer, then, what does that mean for me? And I think what he said to you was so important. And that is, well, I learned that we all have cancer. The
Yeah.
question is, some of us, our immune system sort of let it sneak by a little bit,
Mhm,
or it sneaks in the back door,
mhm.
but that everybody has it. It's just where it kind of conglomerates, and kind of if it creates a neighborhood in your body somewhere that, okay, well, then guess what? You'll get found out.
Exactly. And you know what, Carol, the story I like to make the analogy to is, to me, like you said, cancer cells are in our body. And it's kind of like when you go to the grocery store and you try to scan an item that the barcode doesn't come up and it just like won't go through the scanner. And it's kind of like that's what happens with cancer cells when your immune system becomes suppressed, or depressed because of stress or whatever's going on. And I feel like at that time, when that cancer cell's trying to get through the scanner, it kind of gets through, and that's what happens. So it could be a stress, whether it's an environmental stress, whether it's a personal stress, or whatever's going on in our life that allows that kind of cancer cell to go through and then kind of take over or invade our bodies.
I I love that. I love that. I had read one of the books, I had read was on nutrition,
Okay.
and it was a great book. And turns out, he kind of said is that if you think of them as cancer cells as sort of terrorist cells,
Hmm.
that kind of happen to show up,
Hmm.
and really, it's using all the tools you can to sort of hunt out those terrorist cells
Right.
that are kind of hiding among the general population. But
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love the scanner because I think things that we can wrap our brains around just make it so much easier for us. Um,
Yeah, I love that. Well, the other analogy I used to use is because I spent 10 years on tamoxifen, of course. The Atlas study came out after I was like almost near my end of my fifth year. And they says, oh, maybe another 5 years may be even more effective for preventing cancer or dying from death of cancer. So I did it. And then I asked my doctor, again, my oncologist, well, how do I know that tamoxifen is really working by blocking these cancer cells? And so I started like a visual imagery of looking at, remember the show, the game Pac-Man,
yep.
Pac-Woman, and I would visualize mentally at nighttime that my cancer cells were being eaten by Pac-Man. So that kind of helped me.
You know what? That is absolutely. In fact, I think that I once listened to a gentleman by the name of Nick Hall.
Okay.
He is the first psychoneuroimmunologist and did the first study for NIH that had to do with visualization and breast cancer survivors, and very similar along that lines. And so, Joanne,
Yeah.
let me ask you this:
Mm.
do you feel like that your mindset had a role in also your recovery?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Staying positive. I remember, again, once you go through that diagnosis, you truly do go through those stages of grief, the anger, the denial, and all the bargaining and all that. But I really think that I had to stop feeling like a victim. And so I think in the beginning, that was the reason why I chose to kind of keep my diagnosis, kind of quiet, or not necessarily a secret, but I chose my circle of people who I would share it with. So I didn't, if I had a dollar for every time someone said to me, well, how did this happen? How does cancer run in your family? And that's a whole nother topic, which we know genetics only plays a small role, maybe what, 5-10%. But I think mindset was staying positive and not focusing on the negative really, really helped. And of course, some days are easier than others, as you probably know yourself, Carol.
Yeah, well, you know what? I feel like I cheated a little bit though, because 30 years of teaching stress management, I kind of had a pretty good, toolbox to sort of fall back on. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I felt like, God kind of gave me this assignment. He said, Carol, it, you could help a lot of people with stress, but the one group that you can't help with stress are those who have cancer without having to go through it. And
Mm,
and it was go through the surgery, go through the chemo. I mean, go through it all. And yeah, you know what? I call it the survivor's mindset. And I had a few people around me, and you and I, we weren't kind of connected at the time, but I had two women around me that were 20-year breast cancer survivors.
wow.
And each of them, the two words, each of them told me the same thing. And
Mhm.
both of them in healthcare. And that was, Carol, it's all about your mindset.
Absolutely. You have to stay focused, and you can't allow, again, those negative thoughts are going to happen.
Yeah,
And teaching stress management, I know you know about the whole circle
yeah,
of control, what we can control, what we cannot control. So I became very interested in that. And I was, offered the job to teach stress management in the college. And I thought, what do they know? They must know that I have cancer. That's why they're offering me this. And sometimes what they say is, teach something if you want to learn about it. And so that's where I became interested. And I think that's where our paths cross with the stress management, and understanding, okay, how do I manage my stress, and how do I sometimes, stop or negate some of these negative emotions that sometimes have to creep into your head. And especially at nighttime when it's quiet and you're like, oh, trying to relax and trying to calm the body down, but you got the brain going bop, 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 bop. And you go, how do I stop this? And that's where this managing stress and learning those techniques is very helpful.
yeah. It's yeah, you're right. I mean, and I think so for you, if I understand, because what I'm always amazed by is how people come to their diagnosis,
Mm.
and different people, different ways. I mean, I've interviewed people who, ended up in emergency rooms because of some
Mm.
kind of pain and thinking it was something else. And
Mm.
but for you, you were somebody who sort of, followed your health.
Mhm.
And, when something didn't feel right, you kind of reached out and followed up on it. And, and I think that that's really important for people to hear that, um, doing something about it rather than not doing something about it just really serves us so much better.
Absolutely, because when you listen to that inner voice, like to me, something just felt off, and I knew, the doctor says, well, you do weight training, so maybe that's like an interstitial cystitis, or some type of inflammation in the chest area. And I was like, and deep down side, I knew something wasn't right, quite right, and I feared the cancer diagnosis, but I was hoping that it would not be true. And when it did come true, of course, all the fears had been, displayed to me. And it was like, okay, well, now what do I do? And, it's not sit in a corner and feel sorry for myself. It's let's, take this journey and let's try to heal, because that was so important for me, because I didn't want to be a victim. But there was a lot of working through that. That wasn't an easy process.
No, and in fact, that is a lot of work in itself,
Mhm.
to kind of keep your mind from going down what if alley. Um,
Mm.
and you said something really important I want to point out, and you said the word heal.
Mhm.
And for me, that was where I kept my focus as well,
Mm.
was on, healing, not on the illness, because I kind of say there's two places we can focus, either on the illness or wellness. And you can't go both directions at the same time. And so I'm
Absolutely.
struck by your word of healing, and
Mhm.
again, not being the victim, but just sort of, and the tagline for the show is stand tall to cancer. And the idea being is that when we get knocked down, we got to stand back up again, whatever the best way is that we can.
Absolutely. It's becoming resilient and realizing that, okay, now there's a new normal. And that was difficult to adjust to in the beginning, especially the physicality of it. I am a personal trainer and fitness instructor. So for me, having the breast removed, having the bilateral mastectomy, meant a whole different, persona for me. But not that everybody was going to see that, but I saw it and I felt it, and I wanted to make myself feel good again. So the reconstruction was for me, because I wanted to feel good again about myself. Women have different reasons why they do reconstruction or not. My sister just recently was diagnosed with breast cancer, completely different type, and she chose not to have reconstruction. So again, self-image and looking at yourself and being able to accept the new you. And I'm okay with it now. But in the beginning, I honestly have to say, taking off, those bandages for the first time, it was a very, that was a tough thing for me, emotionally.
You, I think you bring up a really, really important point too. And that is that, each person's cancer,
Mm.
touches that sense of self in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
You as a breast cancer survivor, and the fact that you kind of were, kind of felt called one way and your sister another. And
Mm-hmm.
I know for my sister, um, it was originally, she was thought to have had, uh, you know, cervical cancer, or ovarian cancer.
Oh.
And so she had a hysterectomy. And
Mhm.
I know for her, just that change in her body was a real challenge. Whereas for myself, at a different place in a different time, having a hysterectomy wasn't the same. And I think
Mm.
your point is just really valid, that no one cancer is the same, and
Mhm.
that it's really kind of working to accept that new normal and what that is for you, is
Right.
really important.
And also where you are in your life. I did also have to have a hysterectomy, because being on tamoxifen put me on a higher risk for uterine cancer. And after being on tamoxifen, I would say about 7 years, I started to notice some spotting, and just to be preventative, I did decide to go through with the complete hysterectomy. And of course the side effects were, but I was also already experiencing the hot flashes and things like that. But I was in a different place 7 years from my original diagnosis of the breast cancer. Now, mind you, the hysterectomy was not cancerous, but I just wanted to be preventative and not wait. And that was my call. Now, again, that may not be every other woman's call. So you have to decide where you are in your life. And for me, that
It,
was the right call.
well, yeah, and it kind of comes back to this idea of not waiting either. And
Mm-hmm.
and I had something that kind of, some spotting that led me, to the doctor's office, which led me kind of
Mhm.
on this road. And it was that initial, I don't know, something doesn't seem right about
Mm,
this, and let me take action rather than the
mhm.
inaction.
Right.
And now, would you say that your life then sort of expanded as you made your way through this cancer journey, and that it brought new chapter into your life?
Absolutely. It changed my life in so many different ways, through the way I would educate, through the way I would communicate with people. Even like there were so many people and friends that would say, "Oh, I have a friend who was just diagnosed. Would you mind speaking to them on the phone?" People I've never met and have hours conversations with them about cancer, and telling them, "Hey, it's going to be okay." It's just that fear of unknown. And I remember a good friend of mine who was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she was my go-to person because, quite frankly, therapy didn't work for me. I tried it. I went to her, and she says, "I know." She goes, "I know what you're going through," and she goes, and basically, you need to have a plan. And once you have a plan, then you attack that plan. But without a plan, you feel lost. So it's kind of like going into a job without getting the parameters of what you're supposed to do. And to me, that's where the plan started. Was okay, first we do this, then we do this, and then life does change. But life doesn't have to be better or worse. It just is different. I will say that I recognize and I appreciate things a lot differently than I used to. I think we have a tendency to take things for granted. um, I don't take things for granted anymore. I appreciate the small things, and I think that's so important.
I, and I think, yes, and I think I've had people describe to me that that's one of the gifts they consider that cancer has brought to their life is, this sort of this gratitude and just this ability to be more present in life.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that brings up a funny point because I don't know if you had the opportunity to read a book by the woman's name is Chris Carr, and it's called Crazy Sexy Cancer Tips. And the one thing in there, one of the cancer survivors says, "I wouldn't say Christmas, having cancer is a gift. It's not something you'd put under a Christmas tree. It's not something I'd want to exchange for a better gift, or if I could, I would." But what she says is that she tries to bring humor to the whole idea of cancer diagnosis because, hey, let's face it, if we can't laugh about our problems and things in life, then what's the point? And I think humor became a very important part because my friend, the one I spoke about with the ovarian cancer, she introduced humor to me through that book. She literally gave me the book, and we were reading on my couch, and that was the first time after my mastectomy that I actually laughed, and it was fun. To not fun being a cancer, a cancer survivor, but reading excerpts from that book and listening to other cancer survivors and trying to find humor or the silver lining in that diagnosis. And if you ever have an opportunity, just do seek it out because there are some cute little like tidbits in there that do help survivors. And there's a lot of empirical information as far as nutrition and things to do that could also help you as well.
Well, that's good to know. And one thing that I have done since the time that our paths had been crossing, I actually am a certified laughter yoga leader.
Oh, I love it. I
And
love
and
that.
and you know what? I did it 2011. I did it for, my work at the hospital. But I have to tell you, part of my everyday, since my diagnosis and to this very day, I do 20 to 30 minutes of laughter meditation in my car, driving on my way to work. Um,
That's wonderful. I love that. I actually participated in one of those classes and I thought, this is so silly. Like,
it
who
well,
will do this?
You know what? Us talking about it makes me think that, what I try to do is kind of a variety with this show is, to interview cancer survivors, to interview, people that, are providing treatments or other sorts of, approaches that can kind of complement somebody's health and wellness on their journey. And the other thing is really giving people tools. And just occurred to me that I might have to do that as an in-studio show where I kind of have a couple people come in and we actually tape a laughter yoga session.
Carol,
So,
I think you definitely should, because
yeah,
as you know, in the beginning, you're going to have people say, "Oh, this is crazy, this is ridiculous," but it surely is such a fun experience. And that belly laughter of like doing something absurd, just makes you laugh.
yeah,
And laughter, it is truly medicine,
it
and
is.
people don't understand that. That's something like laughter can help heal the body, and it really can.
Oh, there's a great deal of research out there, and and the story behind laughter yoga is just a pretty incredible one. Um, so listen, we
Yes.
we got about 3 minutes left, and I
Oh,
always
wow.
have a. I told you the time goes flying by,
Wow.
but I kind of just have a couple questions I would love to ask you.
Yes.
And this first one is really um well, actually I'm going to this last one because I think this is really the one that could serve people the most.
Okay.
What is one or more things that you would pass on to others who might be experiencing, their own cancer journey at the beginning of it, or just maybe in the middle of it, that you would pass along?
I would say the most important thing is to stay positive. And I know that's difficult to say or accept for someone going through a diagnosis as scary as cancer, but know that everything's going to be okay once you do have that plan. And every day truly is a gift, and appreciate that gift, and understand that you may not understand the reason why this is happening to you now, but maybe, there's a bigger plan for you, and maybe you can help someone else with your journey. And to not look at it as like a woe is me type of thing, but look at it as a learning experience, and to be mindful of what you do and what you put out there. I think that really is something that people need to understand, and we don't always understand that in the beginning of our journey.
Yeah. I think well said, really well said. And I would just add the one other thing that you shared earlier was is just to focus on your healing, rather than the illness, focus on the wellness that you can bring to yourself.
Absolutely, eating
Yeah.
right, taking care of yourself, exercise, and the stress management part is huge, Carol.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Joanne, I'm so glad to have you, join me. For both reasons. One, just to see you again and to connect
Thank
with
you,
you
Carol.
again. I actually think of this as, one of the wonderful gifts of the holiday, to bring to me. And
Absolutely. And Carol, I appreciate you reaching out to me, and it was so wonderful to reach out to you and to learn about this experience that you do, and to hear that you are on the healing part of your journey as well. And that's important, Carol. And I'm happy to hear that that you were healing and you were doing well, and you look wonderful, my friend. Thank you.
yeah. Well, thank you. I'm just going to throw up a quick. So, if
Mhm.
anybody has any questions, whether it be for Joanne or ideas or topics for the show, you can actually just email me help@carolricard.com. I will make sure that Joanne gets any questions that you might have. And I just want to really encourage people to come back, join us on my next show. And again, thank you so very much, Joanne, for being here with me.
Thank you, Carol. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Great
All
seeing you.
right. Take care.
Good night.